back this. And as you can hear, the meeting is now being recorded. Thank you, Amy, for doing that for us. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joy Watkins. I am currently on the executive board of the TOC as the program years event coordinator, as well as the TOC 25 program chair that we're going to have in April. As a reminder for everyone, and for those that are new to TOC, if this is your first Tuesday with TOC, this lets you know that this is our vision of the TOC. We're really forward thinking and trying to continue to build this community of L&D professionals across the federal government to include our academia and industry partners that help us continue our mission, which involves enhancing that professional development for our L&D professionals across the federal government. And we really rely on our academia and industry partners to really help us continue to move our vision forward as we enhance our own workforces across the various agencies. In addition to just that mission, that vision, how we do that is through a number of events that we have scattered throughout the year, to include our L&D Showcase, which we showcase our awardees from the previous TOC conference. The Discover and Discuss, which is what we're doing today with Ms. Vanessa Alzate from Kirkpatrick Partners. Our deep dives, we've had 2 of them. We have our 3rd one coming up this March. And we have other events that we do throughout the year, especially with our Platinum Partner Graduate School USA and other things that we happen to think of. Let's try and do like our one night out we had back in the fall, late summer. And our biggest event of the year is always our annual conference, previously noted as TOC Annual Institute. We are now just calling it TOC 25 for this year, and that takes place April 27th through April 30th at the DoubleTree by Hilton Center City in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And yes, we are still, I know there's been a lot of things going on in the news. There's been a lot of questions as to what's going on, and we are still planning for this to occur as scheduled. If anything were to change, we will bring that up, but currently this is our plan. So if you're going to be there, if you're not registered, please utilize the TOC website. I'll put that in the chat as well. To register for this wonderful event. If you're going to be at TOC 25 and you want to help us, we do always, our entire board is made up of volunteers. Everyone that's poured their heart and soul into this event and into our entire program year are all volunteers. So go to our TOC website, go to the TOC 25 website, and you can there's a link there for you to volunteer. As I said, we do have events throughout the year, and 2 of the events coming up on March 11th. We have another L&D Award Showcase. Sorry, that is incorrect. This is the wrong slide. There we go. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I don't know what happened to my slides. But we have an event on March 11th, and that is going to be another Discover and Discuss. And then on March 11th is going to be our deep dive. It's going to be held in the DC area, and that is Pain Point Relief, where we work in working groups for about 2.5 hours and really address some of our pain points in any of the projects or programs that we have going on. And the next event is going to be March 25th, and that's going to be in DC area. The location is going to be determined, and we'll get that information out to you once we solidify a location. And finally, and today, we are here with Ms. Vanessa Alzate, from our CEO and founder, or CEO for the Kirkpatrick Partners, and discussing transforming training into performance and business value. And with that, I will turn it over to Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining me and for your time and attention, and already the engagement I am seeing in the chat. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. 1 second. There we are. I have found it. Beautiful. So thank you all again, as mentioned, for joining. We will be chatting today about this challenge that I think feels a little tale as old as time, but something that I think we can never get enough good actionable insights on, and how can we transform training into performance and business value. And frankly, I think in the environment in which we live in today, this is the most important thing that we could be talking about. It's something that I've been seeing in the private sector has been a big shift. A lot less L&D and training departments, and really a lot of questions about what is that performance and business value that that department is bringing to the organization. And we know there is so much. We know we are truly the heart and hub for our organization. Sorry, HR. But for me, I think that our learning departments or training departments, whatever version of the word that you are using today, it is truly the place that has the potential to have the pulse on what is going on in the organization and where the needs truly are, and really strategy can be born out of. But we've got to do our work first, to showcase our value and to translate the work that we do to the language of the business. And so, as Joy shared, my name is Vanessa Alzate. I'm the owner and CEO of Kirkpatrick Partners, and get the lovely privilege of working with the Kirkpatricks since I acquired back in 2023. As y'all might have seen in the chat, I am a New Jersey native that is now stationed in South Florida. So I live in Parkland, Florida, which is kind of in between Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale. Love it down here. Been coming down to Miami my entire life to visit my grandparents. And so now I love to say that I get to do my second half of my life in Florida. But as Dr. Gary and I were just chatting about, I miss the bagels and the pizza. And the reason that New Jersey bagels and pizza are better is truly something in our water. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. Probably a little scary, but it does make a delicious difference. There are even places that import the water from Jersey and New York down to wherever they have their pizza or bagel shop to make them taste just as good. So I actually asked my husband if he wanted to have a bagel shop in South Florida, only if we import the water. So let's talk a little bit about how do we transform training into business performance. So at Kirkpatrick Partners, we worked with one of our constituents in one of our customers in the military, and they asked us a very simple question. How do we know the impact of the work that we're doing, and how can we translate what we're doing in order to get to performance? And so when we looked at where they started, we started looking at their processes, their evaluations, tools and tactics, and kind of where they were. They were where many of us have been or are, right? Doing a lot of great work at level 1 and level 2, and that's really where it sat. And frankly, a lot of it was with really just embedded in survey and over survey culture. And one day I'll have to come back and have a whole conversation about why I believe that we don't really have survey fatigue. We have fatigue of giving our opinion and nothing coming out of it. That'll be a TED Talk for the future. But they were in that survey sort of environment, and they just weren't sure how to get out of it, right? And so some of their challenges that we saw were, they were operating in silos. So their training and their evaluation department worked in one sort of unit, one sort of area, and they weren't really able to build the relationship and build that connection across the organization to really impact change. And so they were also using outdated models. And so for those of you that are familiar with the Kirkpatrick model, or maybe not, you will have known that the Kirkpatrick model was updated back in 2010 by Dr. Jim Kirkpatrick and Wendy Kaiser Kirkpatrick. However, primarily the model that is utilized in many organizations is the model of Dr. Don Kirkpatrick in the past. And so when we look at, organizations of today and learning departments of today, by our lack of not being agile and flexible and really looking at what are the updates that are happening in learning, cognitive science, agile learning theory, how people are motivated to learn and perform, we're missing out on the opportunity to really transform and to shift. One of the challenges I think that we all have is so many people in our industry fall into learning, right? They were really good at their job and then they became a trainer. They're really good at, one thing that they did or explaining something, and then all of a sudden, they ended up in the training department, which is wonderful. And we want people who have passion for it, but we also want to make sure that the education that they're receiving is the most up to date. And often what happens as well is that these folks start to pull in their own experiences and the way that things have always been done. And apply that to how they're cultivating learning experiences. And for many of us, the way that we've always done learning is a school model, right? So we take what's happening in the education system because we all went through that. It's a common point of reference, and then we apply it to how we should develop our learning systems and our structures and things like that. And it just doesn't. And then the last challenge was limited measurement of impact, right? So when you're only measuring at levels 1 and 2, and then, you're trying to understand what's the impact, there is no true direct correlation between levels 1 and 2 to level 4, right? Impact, let alone level 3 in behavior. Now, if we are leveraging only levels 1 and 2 data, we won't be able to see where are the opportunities for improvement. Where are people in their environments able to utilize that information, or what additional information do they need that they would be able to then utilize at work? So how do we make this shift, right? And how do we go away from this? So one of the ways, or a few ways to create this shift is really think about learning development as a driver of organizational success. So as you heard me share earlier, I'm getting some of the Florida sun, so sorry if you can't really see me. But learning and development truly is the heart and hub of your organization. Learning and development, when done right, knows what is happening within the organization, and they are the connector. They become the connective tissue for the organization to say, you're having a challenge here. It's not a training issue, right? What you have is a systems issue or a process issue. Let me connect you to the person that is part of the system or the process to be able to have that collaboration to identify how can you support and make change, right? Without having that sort of connector, that hub sort of mentality, what we start to see is organizations continue to just operate in silos, right? And because we have that mentality of, I've always done training in order to fix issues, right? My solution has always been training. In order to address this concern, I'm going to go back to the learning department and just go ask for training. There's not part of today, but there's a whole science, and I empower you to learn more about the brain and how it works, and habit building and neuroplasticity and all of those things. I'm not, for the record, a big science person. In fact, when I worked with one of my customers in the past, she's very big into neuroscience. We created programs that were based in neuroscience. She was, I'm going to make you love the brain. And I said, okay, I don't know. That's not really my strong suit, science. I was a good student, but just never great in that area growing up, but we'll see. And the fact is, she unlocked a whole world that helps me see learning differently and help to reframe how it is that I developed curriculum. Because I started to see that, and it also helps me unlock and understand people better when it came to building relationships and understanding how we need to structure conversations. Because it started to make me understand that the whole reason our brain exists is to keep us safe, right? And, as a matter of fact, if we were, our prefrontal cortex, right, where we are making all of these decisions all day, if it was actually the size it needed to be to handle the amount of information that we process in a day, we would be like, I think it was a Pinky in the Brain, where his brain is like super big up in the front. We would look like that, which we don't. And so our prefrontal cortex is just frankly too undersized for all of the things that we need to process in order to process in a day, right? And so what our brain does is it creates shortcuts, right? That's why we end up in our comfort zone. We don't like to be out of our comfort zone. It creates these automatic, perceptors. So it says, if I see a stove, I'm not going to touch it because I touched it one time and I burned myself, right? Hardwire that was created. And so that hardwiring also translates. So this is I'm bringing it back for y'all. So that hardwire also translates to how we look at learning and development. We spent at least 12 years in school, plus another 4 years in university, plus maybe another 4 years getting our master's and our doctorate degree. So another 8 years. So we're looking at like a 20-year history of we've always done learning in this way. So of course we're going to do learning in that way when it comes to work, right? Or our company or organization, right? Our agency has always done learning in this way, right? It's almost that sort of automatic perceptor. I'm not going to make that shift, but it's just not working. And so it's about this work is really about being able to take our automatic perceptors, right? And all of these connections that we've made and rewire our brain, right? And re-hardwire it to see that learning is part of organizational success. We should not be talking about learning and development. What we need to be talking about is learning and performance. Because our commanders, our executive directors, our generals, none of them care truly about learning and NPS scores and completion scores. What they care about are the outcomes from the training that folks are taking. Are they safer? Are we more productive? Are we saving lives out on the battlefield? Those are the things that they care about, right? And so it's up to us to translate how learning impacts performance, which then leads to those outcomes and those results. So we cannot get rid of the learning. But what we have to do is shift potentially the type of learning that we do. And we have to start evaluating and saying, is what it is that we're doing, right? That program, that training course, is it truly linking back to results? If it's not, we've got to look at what else can we do? How can we adjust the program, right? It still means a lot. It is still important. Maybe there's something that we should be doing when it comes to how we are delivering the content or the setup or the structure of it in order to make that shift. And so when we become a business partner, we look, we're no longer talking about training, right? But we're looking at organizational or business impact. We're looking at building stronger relationships, right? Being that connector in the organization, the go-to person, the go-to department. And we start to leverage data and analytics. And I know that data and analytics can feel like a lot. Trust me. I am not a huge math person, contrary to actually some math I was doing this morning. But in fact, for years, I shied away from evaluation because I just couldn't, data felt like a lot. It felt like it was a whole bunch of different places. How was I going to pull data from all these different sources, pull it together and make it make sense and tell it a story? The beauty of the world that we have today and the tools that we have today is we are closer than ever, right? We are at a place where we can actually start to make data and analytics a part of our everyday and create stories that make sense. And we're at a place in our world and in many organizations, we can look at data differently, right? We can look at stories as data, qualitative data as data, right? It's not just about hard facts and hard numbers. And there is a way to quantify qualitative data, which is so beautiful. So if you do not know, I'm a big proponent of qualitative data. I love a good story. And so that's where we look at, L&D becoming that strategic partner. As a quick, overview, I did want to share, more about the definitions of the Kirkpatrick model, sort of level set. It is my belief that the Kirkpatrick model is the model that organizations should be using in order to evaluate everything in their organization, not just learning. I know that we're all training folks, we're all learning folks, but I love the flexibility of the Kirkpatrick model. And I say this understanding that I truly am biased, but I believed this before I acquired the company, which is why I, was so adamant to acquire the company, because this is a model that has stood the test of time, and can be that flexible and has evolved. And it's really about how we can adjust how we are collecting data and the data that we're collecting, how we are applying the model in order to create that, to update it for today's work world. So level 1 reaction, the degree to which participants find the training favorable, engaging, and relevant to their jobs. So one of the biggest changes that was made with the Kirkpatrick model is that third word, relevancy. And so favorable and engaging are both great things to have when it comes to your training programs, your learning programs, but we can find things favorable or engaging and not apply it and not have it change any of our behavior. So I am a big proponent of looking out into the world around us and seeing what's working there and applying it to what we do in learning, right? So I take a lot of inspiration from marketing, from social media marketing, and really looking at why these things stick, right? Why we are so infatuated with the Super Bowl commercials, and why we can, remember them on a loop. But if I went through training, I'm not going to remember that, right? So all of those things I love to study and look at. And there are plenty of engaging Instagram reels or Facebook reels that I read and I see that are great, are fun. I might give it a heart. I might like it, but I'm not going to really remember it. It's not going to change my behavior. However, there are Instagram reels that are directly tied to, me as a business owner, learning more about marketing or learning more about learning and neuroscience and all of that I remember and helps to affect how it is that, my behavior, right? Whether it's changing how I do a marketing strategy or trying something new, applying a new tool to learning, right? And the reason for that is that third piece, relevancy. And so we look at, in taking a training request, right, and getting that order, if you will, having a conversation with your stakeholder to understand the relevancy is so crucial at this stage because it's going to give you so much richness of data to then apply when you're designing your program, to be able to give from the beginning the with them, right? The what's in it for me. And so that you can directly tie the training to someone's role or make the recommendation that maybe this isn't the appropriate intervention for this group and this is why. The next level is level 2 learning. So this is the degree to which participants acquire the intended knowledge, skills, attitude, confidence, and commitment based on their participation in training. And the thing that has shifted here, right? Knowledge, skills, and attitude were always part of the model, but confidence and commitment came in the update. And the reason that we love having confidence and commitment here, those are the two predictors of what is going to happen from level 2 to level 3. And it's a great pre and post evaluation to do to say, to see if you were able to increase someone's confidence or someone's commitment through going through your intervention, right? And so we've got this, we call it internally like these sub levels, right? Like 2.5. And there are these questions that are predictors of what we believe will happen in level 3. And all of those questions are around confidence and commitment. And by having those two things, we're able to really see, do we need to go back in and support in another way to help with that confidence or with that commitment to be able to take the learning and create behavior change? If we're only worried about knowledge, skills, and attitude, it doesn't give enough data to really be able to predict at level 3. And then we've got my favorite level, level 3 behavior. And this is the degree to which participants apply what they learn during training when they're back on the job. And this has so many components to it, right? We in the Kirkpatrick world, we really stake our claim that level 3, if you focus your time, energy, talents, and resources in this level, you will achieve level 4 results and outcomes, provided that you really narrow down the behaviors that someone needs to perform in order to be successful and to create that result. And you really look at how you design that intervention and the support and accountability resources that are needed in order to ensure that the behavior is happening. So when I opened, right, I was talking a lot about the brain neuroscience. One of the things that I love, I don't know if I actually might have it. Yeah, it's right there. If you've all read Atomic Habits by James Clear, highly recommend that book to talk about how to help create behavior change so that changing your habits, right, like those New Year's resolutions, becomes a lot easier. So a very simple example of this is if your resolution is to, or if the habit you're trying to build is, I want to take a multivitamin every single day for my health, well, then you want to stack that habit with something that you already do without even thinking. So I think for most of us, brushing our teeth is probably something that we do every single day without really thinking about it, unless you're my children, in which I have to continuously remind my 7 and 8-year-old to please go brush their teeth. And so one way to stack your habit is take your bottle of your vitamins and put it right next to your toothbrush. So every single morning, you can take your vitamins as you're going to go brush your teeth, and that starts to form that habit. And at first, it's going to feel a little strange, right? It's going to feel like an extra step that you have to remember. But then eventually, that automatic perception, right? That rewiring of your brain will occur so that every single morning, you're going to take it and as you brush your teeth, and now you've built that habit. And if we think about the learning that we do, right? If we are not supporting folks with those sort of simple things, right, or giving them opportunities to continue to practice the behavior when they're back on the job, or reinforcing those behaviors we want them to exhibit, they're going to go back to the way they've always done things, right? Because they haven't created that mental hardwiring, those mental connections. And so there's a lot of magic that happens at level 3, and there's so much opportunity. So when we look at becoming a strategic partner in our organization, this is how we become strategic, and we take learning and we put it to the side and say that's the foundation. But what we're trying to do is build performance so the organization sees its results. So let's spend time developing those opportunities for practice, repetition, and to create those rewiring. So these new tools, these new policies, these new processes, these new skills become second nature. And then finally, we've got level 4 results. And this is the degree to which the targeted program outcomes occur and contribute to the organization's highest level results. And what I love about level 4 and its misconception is that it is the hardest level to measure. But in fact, it is actually the easiest, because likely a lot of the level 4 leading indicators. So these are short-term indicators that will tell you if you are on your way to achieving your highest level results. Those are things that are being probably tracked somewhere else in your organization. But it's up to you as the connector to find the person that has that data. Right. So if we look at organizations or programs that are tied to safety, there is probably some sort of safety or a compliance office that is tracking things like close calls, safety reports and things like that. It doesn't mean that you as a learning department needs to go and create all of these metrics. You just need to know who to go to, build that relationship, and ensure that you can collaborate on sharing that data back and forth so you are able to know whether or not your intervention is working. So before I move forward, I do want to take a quick moment to pause here. This is always a question that I love to ask. You all heard from me what my favorite level is, but I'd love to hear from you all what your all's favorite level is. We've got Deirdre and Tara, my level 3. Yasmin, also a level 3 fan. Deborah, level 4, that's Wendy's favorite level as well. And level 4. Do you have any level 1 bands? Great. Thank you, Barry, level 1. So I just found out the Kirkpatrick Summit that we hosted this year, we're also hosting it again in September in case you're interested, that level 1 was Dr. Don Kirkpatrick's favorite level as well. Yes, level 3 fan over level 1 does start to dig into the customer experience. So I'm not going to dog level 1 because there's so much richness and value to what you can find out. And experience is a really big, important piece. So we need to talk at some point after this. I like level 4, but agree, take some time to measure and determine success factors. So Scott agree that for longitudinal data, level 4 takes time to measure, and that's the importance of those leading indicators, right? Because those are some shorter bursts of change that you're going to be able to track to see, that if there's any sort of level 4 change to help support that longitudinal data. 70 level 4, I'd like to see the results. I may eat a salad today and I need to be, in my fittest era after that. So I definitely I like to see the results pretty quickly as well. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. So let's talk about the roadmap to success, right? Like, how do we do this? So first and foremost, if I have not shared this widely enough today, build relationships. The most important things that we can do is to engage our department heads, our managers, and our employees and our peers, right? Our colleagues, to build those relationships so that we're able to cross collaborate and work outside of our silo, and understand, where those lines are where they have to be, but also how can we support each other. And when you're able to, build those strong relationships, you're able to really implement and have the conversation of what I love to call as this culture of evaluation. I think many of us have been part of organizations, right, and agencies and departments where, new year comes out and they say, we're going to create a culture of continuous improvement. And then I stop and I'm like, we're not evaluating. So how do we know what we're improving, right? We don't have the metrics to see where things are going. And that's why I believe that culture of continuous improvement is the wrong message to be sending. And it needs to be about a culture of evaluation. We need to have the ability to evaluate, informally, formally, and make that language across the organization uniform when it comes to evaluation. So we're able to cross collaborate and cross share data. But from evaluation, that's where we're able to see where we need to improve, where we can be innovative, what's working, how do we take that success story and repeat it, right? How do we improve some areas of opportunity? It's got to start first with building relationships, and then you can get to that culture of evaluation. The next step is to align learning to outcomes. So really thinking about your process. How are you taking your requests for training and rethinking the conversations you're having after it, right? Can you shift from being training centered to performance driven? Can you ask questions differently together? What is the performance outcome that you're looking for? Because then I can develop a holistic package or solution in order to provide you with those results that it is that you're looking for. And it's really partnering with those senior leaders to really understand how your initiative aligns with the outcomes the organization is looking for. And those conversations are so crucial because you're going to pick up words that they're saying, their language, what lights them up, what are some areas of opportunity. There's so much richness out of those conversations that will help you align learning to the organizational outcomes. And you want to adopt a data-driven approach. And data-driven gets put as an adjective to so many things today. And it starts to feel almost like noise, right? Like, what does data-driven truly mean? But what we've got to do when it comes to using a data-driven approach is understand what is important data to use and really look at what data do we have available in front of us and what is data. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a qualitative girl, love it so much, and would rather spend more time in the qualitative than the quantitative. But I also just love chatting with people and hearing their stories. So maybe that's it. But there is a lot of richness in that data, and even silence or no response is data. I was working with someone in the DoD looking at their evaluations, and they were like, they do programs for senior leaders, and they're like, we just don't get, I don't know how to measure level 3, level 4 because they're so busy. We just don't get survey responses. And I'm like, that's data. And they're like, what do you mean? They didn't give us anything back. I'm like, that silence gives you so much data to say we need to be doing evaluation differently, because I cannot tell you what the impact of this program is because I'm not able to have those conversations because we're not reaching out to those stakeholders in a way that works for them in order to give us that data and that feedback. We keep trying to round peg, square hole sort of thing, right? We always do a survey. We always do a 60-day survey. We always do a 90-day survey to gather that behavior data. That doesn't work for a 2-star general, right? That doesn't work for an SES. They're too busy. We need to think about how else we can gather that data and make it easy to collect and quick to collect so they can move on. They're also motivated to give that data to you, right? So how are we setting up what this data is going to be used for? So really thinking about what does a data-driven approach truly mean for us? What do we have available and what do we need as data to make better decisions? The next step is to use leverage technology for scalable learning. Sitting, in a training for 8 hours is not it. It's not going to scale. And in a world and in a generation or in generations where everything is personalized for us, we expect that from learning. So I do not love going to the grocery store. I like going to the grocery store now because Publix, I now have access to Publix and they do buy one, get one deals. And I really love a sale. And I love seeing that number go down. I'm really thinking about how much I saved. But I really don't love going to the store. And what I love is I can go to Instacart or even my Publix app, right? And I open it up and it tailors the recommendations for me based on what I've already bought. Hey, you bought this, you might want to, I think it's time for you to reorder that. Or you tried this, you may be also interested in this. Partly what happens besides the fees is that my bill goes up because now I'm trying things I wouldn't necessarily have thought to try because I don't have that personalization when I'm out in the store, right? I'm just going to go in and get what I get and then I'm getting out because it's too overwhelming. And I'm not really sure how, because I liked this rice, this other version, or this other company's rice, maybe something that I enjoy as well, or because I like this fruit, I may like that one. Really, it's because I like this chip. I might like these chips. That is that personalization that people are now looking for, right? Even if you think of, the newer generations that are coming into all of our workforces, right? They're the YouTube generation. They open up YouTube and they get, here's your recommendations based on what you've already watched and what you've shown interest in. They expect that from learning. And so now there's all these AI-driven platforms and these tagging that you can do in your systems to be able to personalize those pathways. So you're able to drive performance. So you're able to actually put together learning pathways and curriculum that are performance-driven and also personalized based on, how someone tested out of a program and things like that. So it's a lot of really interesting things. I know that, AI is a lot and it's a buzzword, but there's a lot of good when using it properly and a lot of opportunity, particularly in our space. I will go down with this one. If we're not embedding learning in our everyday workflow, you can say goodbye to level 3. When they leave the classroom, whatever that looks like for you all, that foundational training, in order to make anything possible in that continuous outreach to pull information, it has to be part of their everyday workflow. So that's why digital adoption platforms have become so popular, because they're like, digital adoption platforms are like if you go to like your new bank, like your bank has updated their system, right? Their user experience. You'll get those pop-ups. Oh, do you want to take a tour of our new tools, our new features? That's a digital adoption platform that they use. That is embedding learning, right? How to use the new system in my everyday workflow. I'm logging in because I need to, check my bank account, or I need to send money to someone. They're not asking me necessarily to go and take a training in order to use the platform. They're saying, I'm going to provide you the training while you're in the flow of work so you can continue on, right? And then I'm going to be here, right? They usually have some sort of like pop-up or some sort of extension that you can, if you need some additional help, I'm over here when you need. Part of why chatbots have been so powerful, right? And there's some other platforms I've been working with that's more of an extension on your browser, be able to pull videos in as you need. All about being where your learner is, as opposed to asking your learner to remove themselves from their everyday and go somewhere else in order to access the information that they need. No one will go to the LMS to go look for the answers to those questions. Likely, they're going to turn around and ask their colleague for the answer before they go and search for it on their LMS. It's another place they have to go, and likely their LMS is a little tough to search, which is a common challenge for many organizations, but really thinking about how we can embed into the everyday workflow. And then finally, that last step is really thinking about how can we be powered by Kirkpatrick? How can we take this model and its flexibility and its elegant simplicity and apply it throughout our organization so that data starts to mean something, whether you're in the learning department or you're in, the operations department, or you're in human resources, or you're in the mechanical department, right? So when you start to all speak the same language, right, you're able to take data and it starts to make sense across organizations. So we have a podcast, the Kirkpatrick podcast, and our first episode of the 3rd season was with Dr. Keith Keating. He wrote The Trusted Learning Advisor. So we interviewed him and he shared more about his dissertation in order to receive his PhD. And he interviewed chief financial officers at a variety of organizations to find out, do CFOs actually care about ROI? And interestingly enough, most of them said, I don't care about what you think ROI is. I don't want you to calculate ROI. If we want to calculate ROI, let's do it together. But what ends up happening is you calculate ROI in your way. I have, as a CFO, and this is my level of expertise, I've got our own way to calculate ROI. So we don't really get alignment. So instead, what I want to hear from you is the stories and the impact, because that's what I don't get to hear. And I'm not typically in our wheelhouse, right? Most CFOs are data and number driven. I want to hear more about those stories. And then how can we quantify those things? And then let's work together to calculate ROI, because it's still important. But I think we have this narrative in our head that we have to be the ones that come up with the ROI, but it'd be something that we do together so that the data actually makes sense and it's not Swiss cheese data. What a delicious cheese. So I wanted, before we go to questions, I want to really focus a little bit about building relationships, because I think that this is, there's different approaches here when it comes to building relationships. There are different sectors and then different approaches, but then also, it's the foundation for everything else to work, right? So there's a reason why I didn't start with aligning learning outcomes, because you got to build the relationship first. You've got to be able to have that psychological safety and the ability to have that conversation with your stakeholder to shift your language so you can really understand and uncover the outcome that it is that they're looking for, right? When they say they want training, what is truly what we like to call commander's intent when they're saying that? But in order to get that and have that ability to have that conversation, we've got to build that relationship and really build that trust. And one of the areas that I think gets overlooked is building relationship with our peers, right? So others in our department and our organization, right? And so I recommend selecting 2 or 3 open-minded colleagues and educating them on a model that emphasizes dual citizenship and being bilingual, okay, the Kirkpatrick model, right? A model that emphasizes really being able to speak learning and the business and being able to translate that across the way. Often when we think about trying to do something differently, we think about, well, let's do, how can we, shift how we do onboarding, right? Or how we do this really big initiative and we try to go after um, feedback. We try to go after buy-in on these larger initiatives where the stakes are really high. When we haven't even piloted that this new way of doing things has actually worked. And that's why I recommend identifying, developing, 2, one is too little, but at least 2 pilot programs, something that you can control, something that is lower stakes. So you can say, hey, we did it here, right? So we have a little bit more ownership over, and this is the results we were able to achieve. And when you conduct that pilot program and implement it successfully, talk about it, market yourselves, show how you can do this again and again and again to get more of those same results. When we're talking about building relationships with supervisors, you want to really look at identifying several of those supervisors that you are going to be creating this learning solution for to discuss a new idea for increasing the effectiveness of the program. One of the biggest challenges I know that you have, we hear it all the time. The managers are not bought into being part of the process. And level 3 relies so much on manager and supervisor support. And so when you're thinking about this new approach, this new method, creating learning solutions where we really do need manager support and guidance, you have to be able to have that open dialogue and that conversation and seek first to understand, not to be understood. Why are they unable to support their employees day in and day out? Why are they not able to be more of that coach and provide that feedback? We may have our own perceptions as to why, right? And we may be accurate. But hearing from those particular supervisors about their unique challenges does multiple things. One, it opens you up to see things in potentially a different way. I thought it's just because they don't have time, but in fact, they don't really have the coaching skills, right? And we're asking them to coach, and they were really good at their technical expertise. They're not great at coaching and people management, right? And it helps them to feel heard and understood. So they're more bought into adopting and committing to a new process and way of being. They don't want you to create this whole new program that they're going to have to implement, at level 3, right? When they're back out on the job, without having a conversation with us first and talking about feasibility. And once you do that, again, doing a roadshow, shouting out from the rooftops, if you will, what were the successes? And asking those that went through those pilot programs, those supervisors, to share their stories, to share their challenges, to share how this new approach shifted how their unit works. And that helps to gain more advocates. It's why a huge marketing tactic is testimonials, right? No one wants to be the first to buy. But if they see how the results that other people are getting and they have been looking for that solution and they've been looking for that result, they will buy. And then, of course, your program sponsors, right? You want to select a 1 to 2 open-minded program sponsors or influencers or champions, if you will, and recruit them to work together on an initiative. again, showing them, hey, we were able to do this small pilot. Here's the success. Here's the managers that have supported us and the outcomes that they were able to see. And then you want to make their life a little bit easy. Create the dashboard that you're going to send to them. Look, it could just be a mock-up. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? At the exact end. But then show them how they're going to be receiving the results and be able to receive those updates. And then you can collaboratively, as you implement, develop and present a slide deck demonstrating the initiative and the value that it brought, which then brings you to your interaction with your senior leaders. Really understanding your time is so limited with them and understanding what is their intent and what is keeping them up at night and how does your new approach solve that problem. And then give them all of their people that have seen great results based on what it is that you were able to implement. I think I've gone this long without sharing the true graphic, the updated graphic of the model. And as we mentioned, right, that level 3 behavior, that's the bullseye. That's the place that you want to spend most of your time, because that's where you can become that strategic organization. And that is where you can really take your learning experiences to the next level. And know that, yes, level 4 sometimes does take time, but not everything needs to be evaluated to that level 4 result. At Kirkpatrick Partners, we don't believe that everything needs to be evaluated to level 4, only your mission critical programs, because we know that it takes a lot of time, energy, resources to evaluate fully. And from a lot of programs that are not mission critical, measuring to level 3 is enough. So with that, I want to open up for any questions that you all may have. And I saw the chat pop up, so I'm going to just check to see if there's any questions in there. Yeah. Joy shared that she misses Publix. The best. So Tina shared, what does success look like for you? And can you just share our, oh no, that actually might not be a question. That might have been a response to one of the slides. So maybe that's not a question. Are there any questions that anybody has?
Please feel free to unmute if you have a question, or raise your hand and we'll call on you if you'd like to unmute and speak. Gary, I see your hand up.
Hey, thanks, Joy. Hey, Miss Vanessa, you mentioned a couple of, good morning, or yes, still morning. You mentioned a couple of slides ago about the impact of empower of teaming up or aligning yourself with influencers within your organization in order to push your agenda. If you could talk a little bit more about that, and I don't know if you even have a story to share from one of your client engagements and how that worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is something that I think is not talked about enough. And it is a critical step to getting to your senior stakeholders, right? A common objection that we'll receive is we don't have the ability to speak with that, senior executive or that senior leader. And you may never get that opportunity directly. However, identifying the influencer who can support your organization, your mission, or your program is the way to get to them. So it's about really being politically savvy and understanding, being able to read the room as who should I be aligning with and who I think would be more open to trying something different. And so, transparently, one of the conversations that I had for many years, was about TikTok and what we can learn from this platform that took over overnight when it comes to learning. And a lot of organizations are like, well, how do I get my senior executives to want to do TikTok learning? I'm like, well, first of all, don't put it on the platform. Leverage the style. But second of all, you have to really know who's going to be the ones that are more open to change And through observation, through conversation with your manager, who might be have a little bit more of an appetite to try something new, or who may have a current challenge that's keeping them up at night that they are trying to fix, and your solution is a solution that they've been looking for. I've worked a lot in the private sector and with sales folks, right? And so one of the things that they talk about is I can't keep their attention, or, there's a lot of refreshers that we have to do, and I can't send out coaches all the time in order to support them. And that's where, I started to leverage some of those TikTok style videos. And I said, well, maybe instead of sending out those coaches, you start to send these short form videos to them based on, kind of how they're doing in their overall coaching report as follow-up, coaching opportunities. And now with AI coaching, there's so many opportunities there, but it's really knowing, who has more of that ability to be flexible, that appetite to be a little bit risky and try something new, and aligning and forming that relationship with them, finding that common ground. I think we underestimate the importance of first building some sort of common ground and relationship before going in with our ask. And it's like that same thing when it comes to networking, right? Like we say, like, networking is not just about what they can do for you. It's really more about what you can do for them. You want to deposit a ton of value for your influencers. So you make their jobs easier, you can make them shine. And that is how you then get up to that senior leader level. Any other questions from anyone? So you all are aware, and any questions, please feel free to come off mute or put it into the chat. We do have at Kirkpatrick Partners free resources, templates, job aids, and our weekly newsletter. So there's two ways that you can register for that. You can scan this QR code or go to kirkpatrickpartners.com/register. I'm going to pop that into the chat. And then the last thing I did want to share, and part of the reason I wanted to spend a lot of time talking about relationships, is that Kirkpatrick Partners is actually hosting a free webinar this Thursday. It's Valentine's week, hence my pink. And we're talking all about defining the relationship. So it's going to be this Thursday, February 13th at 12 p.m. Eastern. That is a QR code to sign up for that webinar. We're going to really be talking about who do you need on your learning and development or evaluation team to do evaluation right and help people shine in the way that they need and they're looking for, right? What puts people in their zone of genius. And so that is that QR code to sign up for that. If you cannot make it live, no worries. We will actually be recording the webinar, so you can have access to review it afterwards as well. And so I hope to see you again there. And again, thank you all so much. I'm hopeful that I will see you all in Philadelphia at the end of April. And because we'll be in Philly, maybe I'll get my pizza and my bagels while I'm there. So we'll have to share some if you're there. Thank you all, everyone.
Yes, I do like the New York bagels and the pizza. Again, Vanessa, thank you so much. Are there any lasting questions? We do have her until 12:30, unless you guys are all done. If there are no other questions, I will go ahead and share my screen real quick. I see there's something new in chat. Nope, you have a number of thanks from a number of individuals that are chiming in. And as a reminder for everyone, all of our TOC friends out here, the next event is March 11th, and hopefully you guys see my screen, the correct slides. Our deep dive, which will be located in DC. I'm finalizing the location this week, and that will be posted on the TOC webpage. And that's going to be pain point relief, where you bring your challenges to us, and we'll discuss through our workshops. We'll discuss a number of strategies and tips to be able to go through those pain points you have with any one of your projects or programs within your own agencies and companies. And then the next award showcase is actually going to be Dottie Lee discussing public speaking, not games and simulations, but public speaking. And then the last event was what we just completed today with Miss Vanessa. So again, Vanessa, thank you so much for everything that you provided us today. And as I noted in the chat, there was a question about today's slides, today's video. That will be posted on the TOC's website at that link that I provided there. Once we get it finalized, it will be up there along with the other ones that you see that are currently posted there. Okay. Other than that, again, thank you so much. And you guys have 30 minutes back unless there's any lasting questions. I see more comments about pizza and bagels.
Now I'm hungry. It is lunchtime now.
That is true. It is. It is. All right. Well, thank you so much. Everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your day. For those of you like in the Northwest Mid-Atlantic area on the East Coast that are that wonderful storm inbound, stay warm, get your bread, milk, and eggs while you still can.
Yes.